Welcome and thank you for standing by. Today's call is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. All participants will be in a listen-only mode until the question and answer session of today's conference. At that time, you may press star and the number 1 on your phone to ask a question. I would now like to turn the conference over to Mr. Andrew Schlack. Thank you, and you may begin.
Great, thank you. Hello and welcome everyone to today's webinar training on the fiscal year 2020 CDFI and Native Initiative Program pre-application, thinking about our 2020 CDFI funding round. We're really excited that everyone has joined us today. I'm Andrew Schlack. I'm an Associate Program Manager here on the CDFI and Native Initiatives Program team. And today our webinar is going to be led by my colleagues Elizabeth Hoffman, who's a Senior Portfolio Manager, and Matthew Pickering, who's a Portfolio Manager on our team. We've got a brief presentation here, so 15 or 20 minutes of presentation, and then we're going to open it up for questions. We've allocated about 2 hours of time for this call, but we don't think it'll go that long. But it's really up to you guys and how many questions we have. So hope everyone finds this helpful, and right now I'll turn it over to Matthew Pickering. Matthew.
Great, thank you, Andrew. Okay. So we're going to keep the presentation today focused on looking forward to the fiscal year 2020 funding round and ways that future applicants can prepare themselves to make the application process as smooth as possible and avoid any logistical hang-ups. So with that in mind, today we will not be covering reasons why your organization was unsuccessful in a prior award round or any matching funds questions that would be specific only to your organization. If you think that your question applies specifically to your organization, we'd ask that you please submit a service request through your Amos account, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. But if you think that your question can be universally applicable, we're happy to talk through it with you during the open question and answer portion at the end of this presentation. So we will also not be covering portions of the application process that occur after pre-application. And that includes application components, submission and review processes, or instructions on how to enter data into an application in the CDFI Funds Award Management Information System, also known as Amos. So to review, the CDFI program and the Native American CDFI Assistance, or NACA program, aim to promote economic revitalization and community development through investment in and assistance to CDFIs, and also aim to build the capacity of for-profit and nonprofit community-based lending organizations to serve rural and urban low-income people and communities across the nation that lack adequate access to affordable financial products and services. The fiscal year 2020 CDFI and NACA program funding round will include the same base programs and supplementary award programs as in previous years. Those include the Technical Assistance Program, or TA, as well as the Financial Assistance, or FA program, which includes the base FA Financial Assistance Award, and under that may also include one or multiple of several supplementary applications, including Persistent Poverty Counties, or PPCFA, Disability Funds, DFFA, or Healthy Food Financing Initiative, HFFI-FA. Okay. The application process can be framed in 3 phases or categories, which include pre-application, application components, and submission and review. As mentioned previously, today's webinar is going to focus on the pre-application portion of the application process. Pre-application includes preparing required items and forms in various government platforms, including SAM.gov and Grants.gov, where you will ultimately submit your SF-424, as well as obtaining an EIN and Duns numbers. And Elizabeth is going to dive into each of these topics in more detail momentarily. Applicants should also review all the application materials on the Step 2 application process page of the CDFI program and/or Native Initiatives website These materials will be posted online as they become available in the period leading up to and including the release of the NOFAs for each program. The timeline for applicants can be divided into two distinct deadlines, each relative to the release of the program NOFA. The CDFI Fund hopes to release the NOFA in early 2020. Applicants for FA awards in either the CDFI or NACA program must be certified as CDFIs as of the date of the NOFA release in order to be eligible. And just as a note, TA applicants are not required to be certified as of the date of the release of the NOFA, but will be required to achieve certification at a date determined by the CDFI Fund if they receive a TA award. The first set of deadlines occurs 30 calendar days after the publication of the applicable NOFA. This includes the following. Applicants must submit their SF-424 through the grants.gov portal. And again, Elizabeth will cover that in a little more detail later. Applicants must create an Amos account. And this is particularly relevant for new applicants who don't already have an Amos account set up. In addition, applicants must enter their EIN and Duns numbers into their Amos account. Just to note, this applies to all applicants, including new and returning FA or TA applicants. The next deadline is the final day to submit a CDFI program or NACA, TA, or FA application in Amos, and that occurs 60 days after the NOFA publication. So the first step to getting started in the planning process for applying for a CDFI program or NACA program award is to obtain an employer identification number from the Internal Revenue Service and a Dun and Bradstreet or Duns number from the Dun and Bradstreet Service. You also may find it helpful to register and or update, as applicable, your accounts in the System for Award Management, also known as SAM.gov, as well as Grants.gov, and in Amos. And I'm now going to turn it over to Elizabeth, who's going to speak more in detail about EIN and Duns numbers and the various government portals that play a role in applying for CDFI or NACA program FA or TA awards.
Great, thank you, Matthew. So as Matthew mentioned, the first step to applying is to make sure you have your EIN and Duns number. Most organizations in existence have those already, but we really need you to ensure the accuracy and uniformity across the EIN and Duns across SAM.gov, grants.gov, and Amos accounts. We need all those numbers to be the same. Some of your organizations may have a parent or affiliate. If you apply with the Duns number or EIN of that parent or affiliate, unfortunately, the CDFI Fund will have to reject your application, and we really hate to have to do that. Additionally, as we said, the numbers must match from your Amos account to grants.gov and SAMs.gov. And likewise, if there is a mismatch in numbers, our hands are tied, we can't do anything to help, we are going to have to reject your application. So the first system that you need to register in is SAM.gov. If you are a new user, you should register as soon as possible. Put it on your to-do list today when the webinar is over. You do not need to wait until the NOFA is available to get your SAM.gov account going, and we strongly encourage you to register now. If you are an existing user, you should also make sure your account is active and up to date. The CDFI Fund, as part of the process, as Matthew indicated, 30 days after the NOFA application, you need to be able to have your SAM.gov account created so that you can submit your SF-424 through grants.gov. And if it is not submitted and accepted by grants.gov by that deadline, your application will not be allowed to move forward. Please also note the CDFI Fund does not maintain SAM.gov or grants.gov. So if you have any technical issues, you need to contact those offices for technical assistance. The next system is grants.gov. And only your SF-424 will be submitted via grants.gov. All the other pieces will be submitted through Amos, which we will talk about in a minute. Highlighting this again, just because it's so important, you must submit and have your application, your SF-424, successfully accepted in grants.gov by that deadline of 30 days after the NOFA. Please don't wait. Please submit it early. Processing times on that can vary, and again, that's something the CDFI fund does not have control over, and every year, unfortunately, there's a couple groups that don't have theirs validated in time, and it breaks our heart to have to say that you can't apply, but we're tied by the NOFA, so please go ahead and get those in as soon as possible. New Grants.gov users also should register, and existing ensure they're active and up to date. One note, in the SF-424, you will specify an application amount, and if the amount that you specify, it should match what you then go put into Amos, but if they don't match, the CDFI fund will only consider the amount requested in your Amos application. Likewise, the CDFI fund does not maintain Grants.gov, so if you have any technical issues accessing their website portal, please contact them directly. Another piece to note is that the SF-424 must be submitted under the correct program funding opportunity number. This ties to, as Matthew mentioned, there will be a CDFI program and a NACA program, NOFA, or Notice of Funds Availability, coming out, and those each have a distinct number. CDFI program applicants need to put the CDFI number. NACA program applicants need to put the NACA program number. Again, this is one of those instances where if you apply under the incorrect number, we have to deem your application ineligible, and we just want to make sure everybody dots all their I's and crosses all their T's and doesn't get hung up in the application due to one of these procedural things. The final system that you will need to access in order to apply for FA or TA is Amos. If you are a brand new organization to us and have not applied for FA or TA or another CDFI program before, you need to register as an organization in Amos. That's something you can also do at the end of this call. You do not have to wait for a NOFA to be published. If you are an existing organization in Amos, it's a good time to log in and make sure your information is up to date. Note that all the required application materials except that SF-424 will be coming in through Amos. If you're new and you don't have an account, you must create it in Amos by the deadline, which is 30 days after the NOFA publication. And also, as Matthew mentioned, at that 30-day mark, you need to have your EIN and Duns number in your Amos account. Folks who've applied with us before, probably those numbers are in there, but again, it just bears checking to make sure that they are correct, they are your organization, not your parent organization, and that they match what you have in SAM.gov and Grants.gov. Through Amos, you will need to designate at least one of your contact people as an authorized representative and a point of contact. Those are two sort of official user roles in Amos. Points of contact will receive emails and information about the processes that come through, and authorized representatives will be the person who ultimately will sign and submit your application. So that needs to be a person internal to your organization. Note that authorized representatives may not be a consultant. And if you fail to properly register or update your Amos account, you might miss important communications from us and not be able to successfully submit your application. So we thought we would conclude with a little pop quiz. Matthew, are you up for this?
I am.
Excellent. True or false? The CDFI fund maintains and runs SAM.gov and Grants.gov.
That is false.
That's correct, Matthew. We can't help with these systems. True or false? All of the FY 2020 application components, including the SF-424, must be submitted via Amos.
That is also false.
That's correct. The SF-424 needs to go in Grants.gov. True or false? Applicants are encouraged to submit their SF-424 forms as early as possible.
True.
Yes, please do get them in after the NOFAs come out. And true or false? Applicants can only submit one application per program.
Also true.
Yes, if you are CDFI, you need to decide if you're going to apply for the technical assistance or financial assistance. You cannot apply for both under that program. Same for NACA. Last question, see if you following along at home can answer the pop quiz. True or false? The CDFI fund will reject an application if the EIN and Duns number in the applicant's Amos account do not match the EIN and Duns number in the Grants.gov and SAM.gov accounts.
That is true.
It is true, and we don't want to have to do that, so please double check your numbers. All right, thank you so much for paying attention during our presentation. We are now going to get ready to open it up for all your questions and answers. Operator?
We will now begin our question and answer session. If you would like to ask a question, please press star and the number 1 on your phone. Unmute your line and speak your name clearly when prompted. Your name is required to introduce your question. If you would like to withdraw your question, please press star and the number 2. Again, if you would like to ask a question, please press star 1. One moment as we wait for questions. Our first question comes from Daniel Sloan. Your line is open.
Hi, thank you for taking the question. I had a question about the requirement that organizations be certified by the date of the NOFA. And it is for pending certification applications for organizations that are hoping to apply in the upcoming round, should they expect that there will be an effort to review those ahead of the NOFA's publication, or how should they go about trying to meet that requirement?
Yeah, so the certification process is run on a different timeline than the funding round, and so the responsibility of organizations that wish to apply for the financial assistance program, this requirement is that those groups would be certified by the time the NOFA is released. And so organizations that do intend to apply for financial assistance based on the process for certification should have had their certification application in, given the amount of time that it takes. Again, we don't know when the NOFA is going to be published. We're expecting it, the early part of next year, but we can't schedule around the date that the NOFA is going to be released because we don't know what that date is. So to answer directly your question, any groups that are working towards certification should have their applications in already because, the NOFA may be published. It gets published on its own schedule, the date to which we do not know right now. And so organizations that are working on their certification that have a certification application in now, that's being, that goes through the review and certification process. That's part of the CCME business unit.
Understood, yeah. The organization in question here has submitted their certification back in April, and so they're waiting on a decision at this point. So they should just continue to follow up with CCME in that case.
Absolutely, yep. Great question, thank you.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from Linda Neers. Your line is open.
Thank you. We're new to Amos, and my question is, can I start the Amos registration process now, or do I have to wait until after the SF424 goes into grants.gov?
Hi, Linda. You can absolutely start your Amos registration now. There's a variety of tools on our website, some guides for first-time Amos users you can follow along if you have any questions about getting yourself up and running.
All right. Thank you very much.
Our next question comes from Paula with Dakota Resources. Your line is open.
Hi. So my question is around, are you anticipating any changes to the application process, the questions for the narrative, anything like that?
So there are, this is Andrew, there are expected to be changes, but we, again, as part of what we're not covering today because it's not been finalized, are any, additional details around those changes. Needless to say, once the NOFA is published, we'll have, just like as we always have the past couple of years, a really robust, training and webinar schedule that's designed around answering specific questions about changes between the 2020 application and the past application. At this time, we don't have any of that information public yet, so we're not going to go into detail.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from Monica Montilla. Your line is open.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My question was related to potential joint ventures or partnerships between two entities that would aim to come together to develop a CDFI, and both of them might have track record and experience financing small businesses. Is this possible, and could there be just like a third legal entity that can articulate the track record of the two entities, or would we have to choose one of those entities to be the one considered for the CDFI certification? Can a joint venture be a possible vehicle to two entities affiliated to one another request a CDFI certification? Thank you.
Yeah, this is Andrew. If I understand your question right, it's really related to the certification process of the CDFI fund and our CDFI certification team. And so happy to direct you to that business unit. Michelle Dickens is our colleague who heads up the certification process. And so I would suggest reaching out to her specifically around your question about the structure. Adding on to that, what the CDFI program team, what we need is a single organization to be applying. I won't get into sponsoring entity because this is not related to this question, but there would be one entity that would have an Amos account, would go through the sam.gov, grants.gov, would have its own EIN, would have its own DUNS number. That's like the perspective our team would need for you to have an eligible application. But it sounds like what you're really asking about is related to certification. And so the leader of that sort of business unit is Michelle Dickens. And you can reach out to our, either through the helpline, calling our help desk number, or also through the Amos, putting in a service request within Amos is the swiftest way, most efficient way of getting a response to your specific question.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Our next question comes from Diana Crowdle. Your line is open.
Yes, thank you. We are interested in becoming CDFI certified, so we're just in that process. What assistance or what steps should we take at this point?
Hi, Diana. This is Elizabeth. Well, one thing you might want to consider, and we will be, talking about this more as the NOFAs come out, but the CDFI, one of the grant competitions we run is for the Technical Assistance Grant, and those funds are designed to help new and emerging organizations who you would like to, put together their business plans and other things for becoming certified, among other things. So I'll let any of my colleagues jump in if they have anything to add, but when the materials come out, considering applying for a technical assistance grant to get you some funds for the direction might be a good thing.
Yeah, great, Elizabeth. And just to piggyback on that, Matthew, if you wanted to navigate, we actually have all of the resources from the 2019 application posted online, and Elizabeth is spot on. It sounds like what you're interested in applying for will be our technical assistance program. And so we can pull up very quickly how to navigate to our website, and you can review the technical assistance application materials that were up there in 2019. They'll be, fairly similar to the 2020 application materials that have not yet been published. So we can show that, but your question is really around the details of the technical assistance program, which, as Elizabeth alluded to, is specifically designed to help organizations. I mean, one of the requirements of our technical assistance grant program, if you are not a certified CDFI, is that you become a certified CDFI during your 3-year performance period. So I'll let maybe Matthew and Elizabeth show how to navigate to their 2019 materials just from our website. So Matthew or Elizabeth?
Sure. Are folks seeing now the screen, the homepage for the CDFIfund.gov?
Yes.
Great. So the place you'd like to go to the programs and training, and in the programs, either the CDFI program or Native initiatives if you're a Native group. And from either of these pages, once we launch here, Towards the bottom, you'll see there's this how to apply sort of step process. Step 1 is certification, step 2 being apply. So right now this still has the timeline and the materials for 2019, but this will give you a sense of sort of the parallel of what we expect to do for 2020. We'll have similar webinars explaining the different items. We will have Amos application tutorials, and then a host of different pieces of guidance to help you along in your applications, both for financial assistance first here, and then for the technical assistance secondly.
Hi, this is Candace Herring. I would also suggest, Elizabeth, if you can actually go back to step 1, I would also suggest taking a look at the certification information that's available on our website, because if you're going to apply for TA as an uncertified organization, part of the application is discussing your plan for becoming certified. So you do need to familiarize yourself with the certification requirements. And certification also hosts conference calls to discuss the certification process. So, so the schedule is on our website as well, the monthly conference calls that they host. I also would
One tomorrow.
Yeah, there you go. So I would strongly encourage you to participate in that as well, to get more details on the certification process.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Our next question comes from Lydia Secura. Your line is open.
Hi, thanks. You just answered my first question, and my second question is, we just set up an entity that will become the CDFI. We're in the process of applying right now. Do we apply under that entity rather than our own organization, our parent organization?
Are you talking about applying for
technical assistance?
Yes, you need to apply under the entity that is the CDFI.
That will become the CDFI.
Yes. Certified
okay, thank
CDFI.
you.
You need to apply.
Well, if you're applying for technical assistance, well, regardless, you have to it has to be a legal entity, right? So
correct.
Well, the entity needs to be formed by the time you apply. Obviously, in order to have an EIN and Duns number and register in SAM and all those other processes that we discussed. But yes, the entity that applies has to be the CDFI entity. It has to be the entity that can become certified.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
There are no additional questions in queue at this time.
All right, let's give it another few minutes in case folks have additional questions.
Our next question comes from Linda Neers. Your line is open.
Hi, just a follow-up question. As I was following you to the CDFIFund.gov website, I noticed that you're using Internet Explorer, and is there any browser restriction for any of these application sites? Do they only use IE, or can I use Chrome?
We're not aware of any limitations. That said, we set the application up, and it's tested in a variety of browsers. Last year, we didn't encounter anyone that, had to submit a service request saying they couldn't fill out the application.
All right, thank you.
So there are a few questions that have come in through the chat feature. We can take those. If others, Tasha, are teeing up more questions, why don't we go through the question and answer panel right now? And then if there are any more questions, if not, we can adjourn early.
Okay, so our first question comes in from Greg, and the question is the slide deck available for download? And Greg, yes, the slide deck will be available for download, and I believe it will be on the CDFI Fund website.
That's right.
With the rest of the assistance materials that we just showed how to navigate to.
Right. What's posted now is the 2019 materials, which are, again, substantially similar to the 2020 materials. We're not going to release the 2020 materials until the NOFA is published, and then those materials become available. So it's going to be in the same location as this particular section.
So the next question is someone's currently on grants.gov and cannot find the SF424 form.
So we'll not, in the interest of time, we'll not navigate, because again, we don't have anything to do with grants.gov or SAM.gov, and so we're not going to sort of be in a position to be able to provide any assistance in locating. Those organizations have their own help desk set up. It's like another branch of the government's systems that we're not at liberty to comment on or help folks with.
I would add in the theme of today's webinar being the pre-application webinar. We want folks to go to grants.gov and SAM.gov and Amos and make sure that your logins and contact information are all up to date. Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong, but folks would not be able to actually submit the SF424 till after the NOFA comes out with the program announcement. So submitting the SF424 now is not possible, but making sure that you're all set up to once the NOFA come out is what we're hoping to have folks do.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. It's not available yet. So when the notice is published in the Federal Register, then it becomes available, and so that's why you're not able to locate the form.
Yes, and just to add, you'll need to access the funding opportunity numbers that Elizabeth previously mentioned. Those funding opportunity numbers are not available or have not been established in grants.gov yet. So once those become public in the NOFA, then you'll be able to access the FY20 SF424 for CDFI program or NACA program in grants.gov.
Similarly, we have a related question from Melody. Just to clarify, if our entity is already CDFI certified, do we need to wait for the NOFA to apply for the technical assistance grant? So yes, you do.
And from Christine, we have, can you confirm the two deadlines you spoke of, the 30-day and 60-day deadline after the NOFA? So yes, Christine, the deadlines are twofold. If we can go back to the PowerPoint.
Or even go back to the 2019 schedule, which lays out.
Okay. Yeah. That one, slide number 5. So the 30-day deadline is going to, so the 30-day deadline will be the submission of the SF424 in grants.gov, the creation of your Amos account, and entering your EIN and Duns number into your Amos account. Now the only other deadline is the final deadline, which is 60 days, calendar days after the release of the NOFA. That is your final date to submit a CDFI program or NACA program, FA or TA application.
And I would also just add, that I want to make sure everyone understands that these deadlines are, we're informing you of them as for your awareness, but actual deadlines, actual dates will be established in the NOFA. So, this is good for you to know, but we're not telling you this so that you are, trying to establish some tickler in your calendar or something like that, because once the NOFA comes out, there will be a specific date in the NOFA that each one of these items are due or must be completed by.
As an example here, I'll go ahead and pull up those deadlines again for the CDFI program for 2019. When the 2020 page is available here in step 2, apply, this first bit timelines will be all here. And as Candace said, we'll give you the actual dates these are 60 and 30 days respectively after the publication, but we will have all the dates available for you.
Yep, that's super helpful.
Tasha, have any more phone questions come in while we've been dealing with the...
Yes, we have 2 questions in queue, and our first question comes from Kate Nelson. Your line is open.
Yeah, I was wondering if you can clarify whether or not the entity that applies for the TA grant needs to be the entity that applies for a certification, or can that form during the 3-year performance period?
No, the entity that applies for TA and potentially receives the TA award is the entity that has to become certified.
Okay, thank you.
The only exception to that might be if you're a Native program. Kate, would you be applying under the Native American, the NACA Assistance Program, or regular CDFI?
Regular CDFI.
Okay. If there are any folks on the call interested in the NACA program, we can have a discussion about that later, but CDFI, it does need to be, as Candace said, the entity that would ultimately go on to be certified.
Our next question comes from Monica Matila. Your line is open.
Thank you. My question is about the length of the approval process. Once for the certification, CDFI certification, once all materials are submitted, typically how long does it take to get an approval?
So that's a certification question again. Today's call is really focused on the technical assistance and financial assistance program application. What we would advise you to do is, even there's a webinar tomorrow, it looked like there was a monthly conference call. Those types of questions are best answered by the certification department directly, based on their current, the number of applications that are under review, et cetera. So we're not able to give you a specific answer about the number of days from application to certification.
Understood. It's another webinar. Thank you very much. I'll dial into that one as well.
Terrific. That's great. Thanks.
Thank you.
There are no additional questions in queue at this time.
So there's a question about, the use of, acronyms and jargon, and we realize we're creatures of our own environment, and so we have probably used acronyms like NACA or CDFI or TA, NOFA. We do our best in all of our written documentation to spell out what the acronym, stands for. Notice of funds availability, NOFA. We'll do that in written materials, but there's no comprehensive glossary at this point that crosswalks any terms that we've used today. That said, there are resources online. All of the terms that we have used today are going to be in our 2019 materials. So if there's a specific question, it came in through a chat box. It looks like from Greg. If there were a couple that you wanted to dial in and just ask us about, we could clarify what they are right now. But there is no comprehensive glossary. That said, again, we do our job, and we spell out what the acronyms stand for at the beginning of every written document before it references an acronym as a standalone. So if you wanted to call in and you have a handful of things jotted down, we can just let you know over the phone.
We have another online question here from Jason asking if we will be notified when the NOFA publication is released. I know that there are press releases that are prepared. Andrew, can you speak to, is it folks who are registered in Amos or through the CDFI, or what's the best way to make sure that you get notification that the NOFA has been published?
If you're signed up for Gov Delivery, which is a service that we use to distribute all of our press releases, you can sign up for that on our website at cdfifund.gov. So if you want to be notified, sign up for Gov Delivery and you will get the press releases.
Matthew's navigating here to the subscribe button at the very top of our CDFI Fund page, so that is where you want to make sure you are signed up. Looks like that's the last of the questions from the web. Are there any additional phone questions?
There are no additional questions in queue at this time.
It was. It's been a great conversation. Thank you all for attending and participating. We hope this answered some of the preliminary questions that folks have as they're starting to think about putting together their 2020 application. Again, just to underscore the importance of these deadlines, what this is really trying to do is give you a roadmap to be successful in putting in your application. We realize that there are sort of two deadlines. As this last question just highlighted, sign up for the Gov delivery system. You will get a notice when the NOFA is available, and then that starts these other clocks, which are the 30-day clock and then the 60-day clock. The 30-day clock being you need to, be registered, sam.gov, grants.gov, have that and your Amos account set up, and then 60 days after the NOFA is when the actual application, which is inside of the Awards Management Information System, or Amos. That's when we collect that data. But back to the beginning of the presentation, Matthew and Elizabeth did a great job talking about, things that you can even do today, really, after we hang up the phone, because we do want to set people up for the best chance of putting in a successful application. So really happy everyone joined us and had an interest. If you have additional questions, you can put in a service request through the Awards Management Information System, and we'll respond that way. Tasha, if there are no other questions, we can adjourn today's call.
Thank you for your participation in today's conference. You may disconnect at this time.